What if every government on Earth disappeared overnight? No presidents, no parliaments, no police, no courts, no tax collectors, no armies, just 8 billion people, waking up with no one in charge. Your first instinct might be chaos, and you wouldn't be wrong. But here's the thing. Chaos isn't the only story. History and human nature have a different story buried inside this question. And the deeper you go, the stranger it gets. Let's follow the cascade. Day 1. The first thing that vanishes isn't a law. It's the feeling that someone is watching. That invisible pressure, the sense that rules exist, disappears. Within hours, supermarkets get emptied. Not because people are monsters, because everyone assumes everyone else will do it first. Banks freeze. Digital money still exists on servers, but nobody enforces its value anymore. Currency doesn't die instantly, but trust in it starts draining like water from a cracked cup. By day 3, roads that nobody maintains begin to feel different. Traffic lights run on electricity, and power grids need operators. Without scheduled maintenance, grids in some cities start flickering. Some go dark entirely. Now here's where it splits. Some places collapse faster than others. Dense cities, where millions depend on supply chains they don't control, struggle first. Rural communities, where people already grow food and know their neighbors, adapt faster. This gap is the first clue about what comes next. Because humans don't stay in a vacuum, they fill it. Neighborhood meetings start forming within days, not because someone told them to, because cooperation is one of the oldest human tools there is. And in the absence of a top-down structure, something rises from the bottom. We call it self-organization, and it's the engine of everything that follows. Within weeks, communities start solving the problems governments used to handle. First, food. Local farmers become the most important people in any community. Barter networks appear almost immediately. You trade what you have for what you need. No taxes, no middleman, just direct exchange. Then, safety. Without police, communities form their own watch groups. History actually gives us examples of this. Medieval villages ran night watches before any central state organized them. Early frontier towns in America enforced order through community consensus, not government decree. But community watches have a flaw. Without a neutral referee, disputes escalate fast. Someone steals grain. Someone takes more water than agreed. In the absence of courts, the group has to decide punishment together. And here's where it gets complicated, because the loudest, most physically powerful voices tend to win. Power doesn't disappear when governments do. It just changes hands. Now think bigger. Trade between communities. Without standardized money backed by a state, trade slows down. Some communities invent local currencies, shells, carved tokens, stamped metal. This actually happened throughout history, repeatedly. Humans nearly always reinvent money when it disappears, because trade solves survival faster than isolation. So small proto-economies form, then alliances form for mutual protection. Then rules get agreed on to make the alliances work. And those rules need people to enforce them. And those enforcers need coordination and funding. And suddenly, you've started building a government. Not because anyone planned it, but because the problems that governments solve don't stop existing just because governments do. This is the great irony buried inside the question. Remove governance, and nature fills the gap with governance. The only question is, what kind of governance? Here's where the real twist lives. The world without governments doesn't produce anarchy in the way most people picture it. It produces something more dangerous. Dozens of tiny local authorities, each with absolute power over their small patch. Think medieval Europe. After Rome's central government collapsed in 476 AD, power didn't vanish. It splintered into hundreds of warlords, bishops, and local lords. Each one ran their patch however they chose. For most ordinary people, it wasn't freedom. It was just a smaller cage. Because without a higher authority to appeal to, the person with the most force wins. Now, some thinkers disagree. Anarchist philosophers like Pyotr Kropotkin argued something fascinating. He said humans are naturally cooperative, not competitive. That mutual aid, helping each other without being forced to, is our default setting. And there's real evidence for this. After disasters, earthquakes, floods, blackouts, strangers routinely help each other without anyone ordering them to. Communities in crisis almost always produce generosity before they produce violence. But Kropotkin's vision depended on one thing nobody can guarantee: scale. Mutual aid works beautifully in small groups, 50, 100, maybe a few hundred people. At 50,000 people, it starts to fray. At 8 billion, the personal trust that holds it together simply cannot stretch that far. And here is the deepest twist of all. The real reason governments exist is not to give power to a few. It's to solve the coordination problem. The problem of getting millions of strangers to follow the same rules at the same time. No other system in human history has solved that problem at scale. Not yet, which means the question, what if there were no governments, secretly becomes a different question. What would have to change about humans, or our tools, for self-organization to work at global scale? Some people look at the internet and see the seed of an answer. Decentralized networks, blockchain voting, digital commons, tools that let strangers coordinate without a central authority. Whether they scale to $8 billion, that's still an open question. So let's come back to the question you started with. What if countries had no governments? The first days would be raw and frightening. The first weeks would produce both cruelty and extraordinary kindness. And within months, humans would rebuild structures that look remarkably like governments. Not because anyone loves paying taxes, but because complexity demands coordination. And coordination at scale demands shared rules. The real question this thought experiment reveals isn't whether governments are good or bad. It's whether the governments we have are the best version of the idea. Governments are just the human solution to a human problem. They were built by people, shaped by power, and revised by conflict, which means they can be rebuilt again. The world without governments doesn't reveal a paradise or an apocalypse. It reveals a mirror. And in that mirror, you see exactly what humans are without the structures they built. Resourceful, tribal, brilliant, and endlessly capable of both cruelty and grace, still reaching for order in the dark.